Hey y'all, I'm Val with Our Forever Farm. Today we're just making a simple country meal. We're doing pinto beans. They've been cooking all night in the crock pot. We're doing fried potatoes and we're doing cornbread. But the star of the show is macaroni and cheese. Let's get to cooking. So the first thing we're going to make is Vicky's cornbread. If you're new here and you've never saw this cornbread video, I'll link it in the description box for you. It is the best cornbread you will ever eat. And if you're here looking for the dough that makes everything, and I mean everything, keep watching because more is coming. But today, Sweet Hunter wanted a good old country meal, so that's what Sweet Hunter's getting. Now, when I make a country meal like this, I usually start out with my cornbread because it takes the longest to cook. I like my cornbread brown and crunchy. Now, I don't know about you, but if you're like us, you love some fried potatoes. There's nothing like them, I'm telling you. Now, all I had is some jumbo potatoes, but I took those and I sliced them very thin. Sweet Hunter, when he makes them, he slices them really thin, and they're so good. And right now, I'm just putting the cornbread in the oven, and then I'm going to start placing my fried potatoes in the hot pan of oil. But first, I'm going to get the water ready for our macaroni and cheese. I'm not good with measurements on this, but I filled that pan about halfway, and I'm using elbow macaroni. Now I'm putting the potatoes in the hot oil to fry. Now you can slice these potatoes any way you want to. You can use any fry pan you want to. I will encourage you, if you have an iron skillet, get it out and use it. It is my favorite cookware, as you can tell. So, the star of today's show is the macaroni and cheese. Don't look at my mess over there. I'm going through stuff, decluttering, so I've got things to give away, things to sell, things to donate, you know. Like I said before, I'm not good at measuring, but I'm going to kind of guess at what this is. I filled this pan halfway full of water to boil, and I'm guessing around 3 cups. I'm also guessing around maybe 2.5 cups of macaroni, maybe 2 cups. This is a smaller measuring cup here. And I get my water boiling, and then I put my macaroni in it to boil. Now, you'll notice when you add the macaroni, it's going to cool down, and you're going to have to bring it back to a full boil. So I got some unsalted butter out, and what I'm going to do is just get one for my butter dish. I'm going to go ahead and just put this in the pan, just to get it out of the butter dish. Put a couple of these up. This is just for getting it ready for the cornbread. The cornbread's in the oven, by the way. The fried potatoes are frying. The butter will soften. And I'm going to use this for my macaroni. Gonna put these up. So as you can see, our water has came back to a boil. It's actually foaming a little bit. I'm going to turn it down a little bit, but I want it to keep boiling. I want to cook this pasta until it's almost done. And I don't want it to boil over, and I don't want it to stick to the bottom of the pan. There's nothing worse than burnt pasta. So I've done a video on this before, and I've thanked my friend Diane for it. It was back in the 90s. I didn't know any different than to think that boxed macaroni and cheese was the only way to make it. Diane taught me a different way. I have never went back. This is delicious. There is nothing better than fried potatoes to me and Sweet Hunter. We love fried potatoes. So our macaroni's boiling. I took out part of our beans and put it in a pan to keep it warm because I put the other part in the refrigerator. That I cooked the pinto beans all night, and part of them will be for today's dinner, and part of them will be for nachos and tacos and things like that. So I cooked a whole pound in the crock pot and then put the rest in the refrigerator. So those are cooking. Let's go ahead and put some salt and pepper on these. We like lots of pepper. I've done a video on cooking dry beans and also canning dry pinto beans, and I'll put that link in the description box. Sweet Hunter's granny is the one that taught me how to fry potatoes, and oh, she knew how to do it. Now here our macaroni's almost done. So I always keep Velveeta in my pantry or my refrigerator, and I don't have any in the refrigerator, so I'm going to open up one out of my pantry. Velveeta, butter, salt and pepper is all you need to make this delicious macaroni and cheese, and it is delicious. Now my goal is not to cook the water down. I want water in my elbow macaroni. I'm just going to open this up and have it ready. These are probably about halfway done. So I keep stirring to check to see how far these have to go. They have a little bit to go because you want them almost done. Because you're going to cook them a little bit more after you get the cheese in. Potatoes are frying up well, the cornbread's in the oven, the beans are on the stove. Now the macaroni noodles, the elbow macaroni noodles, are almost done. So now I'm going to add the cheese, the butter, the salt and pepper, but I'm going to continue boiling it with the water in there. I want the water to stay in there. That's going to be the cheese sauce. So I just cut up my Velveeta. Ooh, that's hot. And I start adding Velveeta. Now I don't have any measurements for this. You just guess, because that water is going to make that sauce with this cheese. I use a lot of cheese because I like a lot of cheese sauce. And you just continue it boiling just like you would if you were doing your macaroni. And at this point, you do not stir it. Now you need plenty of water in this. If you add any water, make sure you add boiling water. I never have to add water because I start out with plenty. I'd rather have too much than too little. My Velveeta is not cold because it's been on the pantry shelf. Hasn't been in the refrigerator yet. Now I would guess that I'm using a quarter of this large Velveeta cheese. Now, I'm just going to let that sit there for a minute and boil. So the whole point right here is not to stir it. Let that cheese make its own sauce. Next, we're going to add a half a stick of butter. You can add as much or as little as you want. And I'm just going to cut this into pieces. I'm using the same knife that I did the cheese with. And I'm going to put them in the pan. And let that butter melt in that boiling water. The least amount you can stir this, the better. But you don't want it burnt on the bottom or sticking to it. You also want to add your seasonings at this point and finish cooking your elbow macaroni. Now I leave the lid off during this process and I just let it keep boiling until I think the noodles are done and this has made a good cheese sauce. It does it on its own. After you turn it off, it will make a thicker cheese sauce. So right now we're just boiling it to make sure our noodles are done, make sure our cheese and butter is melted. We're trying not to stir it. It's going to be so delicious. So we've got our cornbread in the oven, our beans are cooked and on the stove, our macaroni's just about done, it's making the cheese sauce, and we're frying the potatoes. Now, I finish these off in the oven. I get them as brown as I want them, and then I place them in the oven, just like Sweet Hunter's granny taught me how. And our macaroni and cheese is just about ready. So this is cooked probably about maybe 5 or 10 minutes longer, and I'm ready to cut this off. It will keep cooking in the pan, but I don't want it to stick to the bottom. I don't want to stir this at this point. While it's boiling, if you feel like it's possibly sticking to the bottom, make sure and stir it, because you don't want that macaroni to burn. So I've got my beans cooking, my macaroni is done. It's just got to sit for a few minutes. The longer it sits, the better the cheese sauce is. It is so good, I'm telling you. It just makes its own cheese sauce, leaving that water in it. A lot of people drain their macaroni and then add the cheese, but Diane taught me to add the cheese and the butter and the salt and the pepper to the water while it's cooking the last few minutes of the macaroni, and then we just let it sit. And you can see, I'll show you in just a minute, that it is cooling down, and it's gonna just sit. It's cooling down. See, it's just boiling a little bit. At this point, do not stir it. Our fried potatoes are still cooking, and I'm fixing to put them in the oven with the cornbread. So I'm gonna start cleaning my mess up. So the fried potatoes I'm gonna go ahead and put in the oven. Let's do that right now. The cornbread is getting brown. It's just about done. And I'm just gonna set those in. You can see the cornbread's getting brown. And we'll let the potatoes finish off in the oven with the cornbread. So that'll be done. The macaroni is basically done. It's got to sit here for a few minutes. And the pinto beans are warm from the crock pot, so they're ready to go. I have a messy stove, y'all. I've wanted to show you this macaroni as a refresher course of how to make the best macaroni ever. I hope you make it no matter what you cook with it. This macaroni and cheese is good. My grandkids, that's what they request. Macaroni and cheese and biscuits. That's it. I've got everything ready. I'm pretty sure everything's ready. The cornbread, pretty done. I like it a little bit darker, but hey, we're hungry. We are hungry. Fried potatoes are done. I'm gonna turn the oven off. And the first thing I'm gonna show you is this macaroni and cheese with the cheese sauce. It's so good. And I wanna show you how it sets up. So let's get down here where you can see it. Hope you can. Look at this. It is a thick cheese sauce that is so good. Look at that. Don't that look good? So macaroni and cheese is the star of the show today. The longer it sits, the thicker it'll get. But we're hungry, so we're ready to eat. Don't that look good? So y'all know we're trying to bring you all back home. We're trying to bring us all back home. Fried potatoes, pinto beans, cornbread, and macaroni and cheese. What a better way to bring us all home. There is nothing like a home-cooked meal. So I'm going to go ahead and dish out some of the fried potatoes just to let them drain. And then I'm going to throw some onions in there for mine. So it won't take a second to get those fixed, but this will be for Sweet Hunter. Don't those look good? They look so good. So I'm going to dish his plate out and get it ready. And then I'm going to throw some onions. Well, let's just throw the onions in now. Why not?
So I have to keep my onions that I have chopped up in the refrigerator in a bowl, wrapped in foil, or he'll smell them and go berserk. He don't know what good is. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn this back on, just to cook these onions a little bit. Yeah, it's on. And I'm gonna throw some onions in there. So this will be for my fried potatoes. So I'm just gonna fry these up just a little bit. It don't take much. Go with my fried potatoes. And I might cut one slice just to go on my pintos. And put these back in the bowl where he can't smell them. That won't take but a minute. So look at this macaroni. Oh my goodness, it's got a cheese sauce that you wouldn't believe. It's so good. I love baked macaroni too. We'll do that one day too, but this is so delicious. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. My fried potatoes with my onions and my big old slice of onions. I'm going to get some green tomato pickles. If you haven't saw that video on canning green tomato pickles, you need to watch it where you'll be ready next year to make them. So here's his plate ready to go. The only thing I don't have on here is green tomato pickles because he's got some open downstairs. But here's our macaroni and cheese, our fried potatoes, our pintos, and our cornbread. Y'all go cook something. It's gonna be so good.